Today's text comes from John chapter 18, verses 33 through 38a. Hear the word of the Lord. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. I just finished reading a novel that portrays the unvarnished truth as something exceedingly difficult for us to see and accept, especially the unvarnished truth about ourselves. We wear masks to hide from others. Unfortunately, we also wear masks to hide ourselves from ourselves. We may consider ourselves more important, more righteous, more worthy, or more central to the larger world around us than we should. Conversely, we may portray ourselves as less than worthy even of our humanity, not deserving love or acceptance. How can we accept ourselves for who we are in God's eyes and accept that as being sufficient? What truth does God want us to understand and accept? Our definitions of truth do not coincide too well with God's. Our determinations of what is of worth run counter to God's definitions. Our values and the face we put on the world around us give us some degree of confidence and comfort. But they often mask aspects of reality we simply do not wish to see, do not wish to deal with, are unwilling to allow to make us uncomfortable. We prefer to hide behind the masks of slogans, bumper stickers, and trite answers to deeper questions so that we might avoid the realities we feel unprepared to face. Then we hear a new generation wielding the term truth in ways we do not quite understand, denoting one's personal experience, one's story, one's understanding of self, one's appreciation of the larger world. When Pilate responds to Jesus with, "What is truth?" we may find ourselves wondering right along with him. Jesus' confrontation with Pilate was one of those hallmark examples of so many issues trapped behind facades designed to muddy reality. The chief priests brought Jesus to Pilate under one set of accusations while keeping their motives under wraps. Pilate could see through the smoke screen they established to know there was more to the story, even if he were not sure exactly what they were hiding. It was apparent to Pilate that Jesus was no usurper attempting to overthrow Caesar. At the same time, he was pretty sure the Jewish authorities had some reason to cast Jesus before the Roman court. Pilate's task became murkier as he strove to decide what to do with Jesus, how to uncover the story behind his arrest, and then determine how to proceed according to Roman interests. He might have decided that Jesus was not guilty, but he was also in a position calling on him to find some way to appease those who had brought Jesus before him. It was not a question of determining the truth. It was a question of how to best play the game before him. Pilate needed to know what stake all the players had in this game. Only then could he decide what move was most appropriate, what move would advance Roman interests and his own. As any politician, he was playing to a crowd. And he was trying to determine the best step to make to promote his interests, just as the chief priests brought Jesus to him to advance theirs. He didn't want to become merely a puppet of the Jewish authorities. Yet truth was not the issue at hand. For all the claims that a court is a sphere in which the truth is fundamental, truth was not an essential ingredient in the case playing out before him. When we boil it down, truth is rarely the focus of a court proceeding. The case against Jesus was about power, about politics, about fame, about influence, about publicity, about presenting a message to the public. It was about advancing Rome's interests in holding on to power, keeping rebellion in check, playing good with other power brokers, and negotiating such that the integrity and power of Rome remained protected. This is a drama being played out on a political stage, a drama for the benefit of crowds and the different parties attempting to gain advantage over one another. Jesus was just a pawn. The chief priests wanted Rome to do their dirty work. They wanted Jesus' death delivered at the hands of others to keep them out of the line of fire. They knew that many followed Jesus and deemed him a prophet. They were threatened by Jesus' teachings and wanted him silenced. They did not believe they could carry that out without inciting backlash from those who clung to Jesus' words. Pilate wanted a lid kept on the commotion in the region. He already had one insurrectionist imprisoned for armed revolt. He wanted to appease the masses in order to buy a measure of goodwill to maintain order. He also wanted to keep his relationship with the Jewish authorities on as even a keel as possible. Jesus stood before Pilate, unconcerned with the political motivation swirling around him. He did not care to uphold the power structure of a priestly class. He did not care for Rome's political advance. He did not care about Pilate's personal advantage. These were not the issues that drove his actions, words, and decisions. His concern was about something else entirely. It was about proclaiming the truth, most specifically the truth of God. For Jesus, concerns over power and position were at best marginal issues. They did not inform the basic structure of God's purposes. jostling over power, prestige, and self-importance, did not fit into the framework and motivation of Jesus' identity and ministry. Rather than allowing himself to be sidetracked by concerns of influence and power, Jesus remained focused on something else entirely. An issue that should have been at the heart of these court proceedings: truth. The problem was that truth was not front and center for the other actors. They were concerned with strategy and other objectives for which Jesus was merely a token and an alternate scheme. That was a game Jesus would not play. Jesus was not concerned with upholding the political status quo. He neither attempted to support Rome's political dominance nor undercut it on behalf of Jewish sovereignty. He was not worried about Pilate's personal advancement, nor with protecting or promoting the influence of the Jewish authorities. Now, the game of politics was not important to Jesus. It was not even an afterthought. His concern was with God's reign. Politics, nationalism, self-determination simply were not categories of merit to the mission set before him. They were distractions, traps, rabbit trails leading nowhere. In the context of God's reign, the issues before Pilate were unworthy of consideration. What does it matter who is in power, as long as they seek personal advancement, power, and gratification? Jesus told Pilate that if his reign were of this world, his followers would be taking up arms, using the tools of violence. God's reign is built on something else entirely. It does not exclude by force. It does not bring people in by coercion. It does not advance individuals and groups to wield power over others. Its character is totally different from all that came before. The truth of Jesus included that we are all equally loved by God. Neither the Romans nor Jesus nor the Jews wanted to hear the truth. The truth Jesus came proclaiming was equalizing. It did not pit winners against losers. It did not advance some at the expense of others. It proclaimed the sufficiency of God's grace to cover one and all equally. This truth makes us all family. It binds us all together. It sets aside all of our differences, conflicts, and rivalries. When will we learn to see one another according to the truth of Jesus' gospel? Sinners and saints, insiders and outsiders, female and male, poor and rich, old and young, dark and light, we are all invited to live under the reign of God on equal footing. There's no room for pitting some of us against others. There's no room for partisanship. There's no us versus them. The truth of Jesus' gospel is that we are all equally welcomed into God's reign. Why is that truth so hard for us to embrace?